Right. Good afternoon. Uh, we completed the unit number 1, right? We finished everything. In unit number 1, as I told you earlier, you could find 3 different areas. First of all, the things related to data information. That's first one. Then the roles of ICT in society or to society, right? We took several sectors, right? That is the second one. Third one, the history of the computers. You have only 3 areas, but those 3 areas may have some depth, right? Wider fact. That's why we took some time, right? Otherwise, the unit is too small. Okay, right. So I hope that you could understand everything in unit number 1, right? So without further introduction, we can move to the unit number 2. Right, there will be an examination or unit exam. As usual, I conduct unit examinations at the end of every unit. So since the first unit has been finished, we must conduct one exam for unit number 1. It will be conducted very soon. So try referring everything in unit number 1. You can refer the things which I taught, right? So you don't need to study other things. Just refer the things which I taught and be ready for that. I will inform whether the unit, exam is conducted online or whether it is a, written examination, or I will inform. Okay, right, okay. So unit number 2. So in unit number 1, we learned the basics of ICT. In order to understand the term ICT, we also took the 2 words data and information. So after taking data and information, we learned everything in terms of ICT, right? Information and communication technology, right? But now, this unit number 2 is about computer and its basics. Especially here we will have to talk about the components or parts of a computer system. Maybe some areas may have a different concept, right? But most of them, right? Most of them are related to parts. Okay. So before we take such things, let me define the term computer. Okay. So in unit number 2, we have to take the components of computer, or even you can say fundamentals of computers. That may be the title of this unit, fundamentals of computer. So when it comes to fundamental, you need to understand everything, right, related to computer. Right. So let's define the term computer. It's too simple because we have experiences in computers. We use the computers, so we can understand the function of a computer. So it's too simple. Computer is a machine which converts the data into information. That may be the very simple definition for computer. I repeat it. It's a machine. In fact, it's an electronic machine. You can add that particular phrase in your definition. Computer is an electronic machine. What's its role? Process the data into information, or converts the data into information. Okay, so this is the main role of a computer. You may have different types of computer, right? You may have computers which are placed on table. You may have computers which can be kept in a pocket. So you have different types of computers. Later we will discuss, in this particular unit we will discuss the types of the computer. So it doesn't matter whatever type you have, right? They do this one. They take the data, and some processes taken place inside of the computer. As a result of the process, they provide information back to us. So this is computer. It's an electronic machine. It converts the data into information. Got it? So as other devices, we talked about, you know, some other devices like a fingerprint reader or barcode reader. So they also check the data and process them as information. But a computer may be related to, I mean, doing computing and some other tasks, because those devices have unique features. If it is fingerprint reader, it has a unique purpose. It is only for taking or scanning fingerprint. If it is barcode reader, it is only for scanning or taking barcode. But computer is something which is different than the others because it is a multi-purpose device. Okay, later we will discuss. Okay, right. So thereafter, we should understand the characteristics of a computer. Since it's an electronic machine, definitely it has different characteristics. So let's take them one by one. It would be better if I show a presentation to explain, right? Then only you can easily read and understand. Let's wait. Look here. So I already defined the term. Okay. Computer is an electronic machine which processes the data into information, or you can say which converts the data into information. Right, look here. So computers have different characteristics. As a computer user, you can easily understand. If even before I introduce them, you can understand because we all use computers. Even, you know, smartphone is a kind of computer. So everyone uses, right? So we can get some characteristics. First of all, look at this speed. It's too simple, isn't it? A computer has its own speed. We often compare our computers with the others and try to say that our computers are faster than yours and our computers are slower than yours. So definitely, you know, speed is an important parameter there. In fact, computers' efficiency may be measured with the help of this speed, right? So that is the first characteristic. Computers have speed, okay? I briefly explain, look at this description. Computers perform the processing in a faster manner. Executes more than 1 million instructions per second. So computers have the ability to process more than 1 million instructions per second. Think how fast is it? So it processes around or more than 1 million instructions per 1 second. So, you know, it's beyond that imagination. It's very fast. Okay. Second, accuracy. Yes, we can understand, right? Computers never make mistakes because they follow the instructions given by people and work. Because nowadays computers have some sort of intelligence we discussed in unit number 1, but generally computers never work alone. They work according to the instructions given. So who have the responsibility to give the instruction? People. So if instructions are rightly given to the computer, definitely they can work correctly. So sometimes people complain that the computers make mistakes. So, you know, this kind of a dialogue is very common in offices and other things. So people often complain that the mistake is not theirs, it is computers. That cannot be accepted because if the instruction, you know, in a computer, we perform activities using softwares. So those particular programs or softwares are developed by people. If those softwares or programs are developed accurately or perfectly, then computer never make mistakes. Look at them. We withdraw money from ATM. So when someone withdraw money, if the program is perfectly designed, then immediately there is a deduction in our balance, right? So if I suppose if I withdraw 10,000, as soon as I withdrawn, there should be minus 10,000 in my account because it works according to the instruction. Okay, so it has accurate. Look at this description. Computers produce correct outputs when correct instructions and data are given. Have you understood? Computer never make mistake because they follow the instructions. Okay, if correct instructions are given, definitely they work correctly. Then efficiency. speed is something different than efficiency. See, as people, we get tired. So maybe when we start doing some tasks, we are too fresh and we have some sort of enthusiasm, so we can do things very effectively. But what happens when time goes up? So you may get tired, and so once you get tired, your work is not appropriate. It is not efficiency. You may make mistakes. So that is the nature of a human being. But these are computers. So computers can do any tasks continuously with the same efficiency because it's a machine, right? So that is another one. A computer never gets tired. It can work any lengthy period with the same level of accuracy. You must agree that, because as people, we cannot do that. Maybe for some time we can do with accurate and efficiency, but when time goes up, we cannot maintain that. Okay, right. Then the versatility or versatile. You know what versatile is, right? So sometimes you cannot expect such thing from people. Versatility means doing many tasks at the same time, right? So as people, there may be people who can say that people in the past who did 100 works at a time or 10 works at a time. So that may be true or that may be false, right? We don't want to argue that one, right? You know that, right? There are people who lived in the past to do 100 works at a time, right? And 10 times. So I don't know whether they are correct or not, right? Leave it. But think about the modern people, right? As people, as an individual, you may do maybe 1 or 2 tasks at a time, but not many, right? Even doing 2 tasks at the same time, it's very tough, right? You cannot. But computers can do, right? Simultaneously, multiple tasks can be carried out. You can see while listening to a music, you can type something in your computer. So you are typing something while listening. So how many activities are going on? 2. So who is doing such things for you? That is computer, right? You are doing, that means indirectly computer works. So now that computer does 2 things at the same time. Right, like that you can take 3 times, so 3 works, 4 works simultaneously. That is versatility. Okay, a computer can perform many tasks simultaneously, which means at the same time. Right, then yes, they have the capability for storing. They can store something. Even they can store millions of data inside, because as you know, we have some storage devices in the computer, so they can store gigabytes of data or terabytes of data. We will use such words later. Okay, so they have the capacity to store. And computers don't have any feelings. So when we don't have any feelings like anger, right? Maybe joy or whatever, sadness. So these different kinds of feelings are always barriers for our improvement or for our work. So think about you. If you are sad, you cannot do tasks. That feeling definitely prevents you in doing some tasks. Even if you are too joy, if you are too happy, so that particular mood doesn't allow you to do things like that, right? So those angry people never do things in a perfect manner. So those are the feelings to which we are bound, right? So we cannot do things because we are bound. But think about a machine. It doesn't have any feelings like anger or happiness or whatever. So if it's a machine, so if it is a machine without this feeling, it can do anything. None of them prevent that particular machine in doing tasks, right? So that is another one. So these are the characteristics of a computer. I take it again. Again, I tell you not to memorize, right? So you have some sort of maturity. So use your idea, use your understanding, use your experience, and get these points with your experience. So there is no need to, memorize everything from the beginning. Okay, take those characteristics again. First of all, we talked about speed. Okay, computers have speed. Everyone wants to have high-speed computer. Second, accuracy is there. Computers always produce accurate, correct output if the data are fed correctly, right? That is important. Then we talked about versatility just now, right? It means computers have the ability to perform many tasks at a time. And also we talked about efficiency. Computers can perform any tasks for a lengthy period of time with the same efficiency, right? The efficiency never comes down, right? That is important. And also we talked about the storage capacity. They have the capacity, or they have the ability to store a lot of data inside. At last, we talked about feelings. No feelings available, right? So computers don't have any feelings, so they can do tasks with accurate, right? So these are the characteristics of a computer. Remember them. This can be asked even in MCQ. Maybe for first term, this can be asked in the part 2 questions, so you can understand, right? So the next title would be the types of computer, but I'm leaving the title at this moment in order to explain some of the other things, because I thought that it may be good to change the order. But if you go through your book, I think and the next title would be the types of computer. Doesn't matter. We will take some other things, and later we can come back and take the types. Okay, look. So now we all know what computer is. We can define the term. Everyone knows that it is a machine which converts the data to information, right? Fine. If you take a computer, there can be some components. So actually, computer is not a single device or single component. It is a collection, right? It is a collection of some component. Every computer has 4 different components. These 4 different components are very vital for performing any tasks, right? In order to do any task in a computer, you need these 4 components. So let's take those 4 components first. Anybody? Because you have some experiences with the computer, and also you have come all the way from grade 6, right? So you have some experiences. Can anyone tell me what are the components of a computer system? What are those most important things needed in a computer for performing tasks? Anybody? Anyone knows what are the components?
Input, output.
Input, output.
Input, output. Okay, let's see. Any other options? Any other answers?
CPU.
Processor.
Processor. Okay, give you ideas. I will give the summary. I will tell you the fact.
Keyboard.
Keyboard.
Motherboard.
Motherboard.
CPU.
Mouse.
Okay, look. Listen. Actually, I'm not talking about the single devices. I'm not talking about the single devices. I'm talking about some common terms or common objects. Look here. As I told you earlier, to do any task in a computer, even see we are conducting a video conferencing or we are conducting an online class where we want these 4 objects. I can tell you, if I don't have these 4 components, I can't do this class. Or even in your point of view, you also need these 4. But so what are those 4 components? Right? So we want hardware. So you might have mentioned some of the hardwares like mouse or motherboard or processor. but it is hardware. Later we will discuss, right? So hardware is a component of a computer system. Without hardware, you cannot do tasks, right? That is important. I will explain. Yes, you want software, right? Having hardware alone is useless or is not enough. So you need another component called software. I will explain every word in a brief manner after introducing all the 4 words. But I will not explain in detail because they will be taken in the next, upcoming units. So it is not important to explain in depth, but we must understand. Yes, hardware, software. Now I got the start, right? So can anyone tell me the other 2 components? Now you have the start.
Operating system.
Liveware.
Operating system. What else?
Liveware.
Yes, liveware. What else? Anybody knows? Hardware,
Computer
software.
ports. Computer ports.
Computer ports. Computer ports. Computer ports. Right. That may not be that may not be a component, right? That is there. It may be a hardware or something, right? Okay. What else? Firmware, hardware, software, liveware, firmware. So these are the vital components found in every computer system. As I mentioned earlier, if you want to do any tasks, you need these 4. It may be listening to music, it may be playing a game, it may be chatting with your friend. So definitely you must have these 4. So I tried to give an introduction for these 4, but definitely we will study about them in detail later. Okay. So, hardware. I hope that this term is too friendly. You know them, right? So hardware is physical component of a computers, right? So these are the parts which are attached in a computer. So as you could see, you have monitor, you have a motherboard, or you have keyboard, mouse, right? So, right, these are the hardwares. We will discuss about hardware in detail in this unit. So what are hardwares? They are the tangible things. They are the physical things. Though they have the physical appearances, you can see them, you can touch them. So they are the hardwares. Simply physical components. So you can understand how these how far these physical components important, right? Because without having these physical components, you cannot do tasks. For example, if I want to type a letter, I must have keyboard or mouse or something. Even I must show the output on the screen, so I won't monitor. So hardware is very important. That is a part in a computer system. Okay, second. Okay, even though you have hardware, software is important. So we have a statement regarding these 2. Hardware without software is useless. There is a statement, right? Hardware without software is useless. So which clearly indicates that having hardware alone useless. Think about any hardware. See, assume that you have think about your mobile phone camera. You have a camera in your mobile phone. That is hardware. But if you want to capture the scenes, definitely you need a small program inside. You have experience, right? You just tap the particular program, and then only the camera opens, and then you can change the brightness and everything, right? Whether you change the rear camera or front camera. So you do some things, right? That is the software. So actually, the hardware and software should work along. Should work in a collaborative manner. then only you can do the tasks. The camera is very simple example, right? Having a camera as a hardware is not sufficient. So you need a small program which can work with the camera, right? That is software. So you can take any other example. See, now you have Viber, but you have Viber or WhatsApp or whatever. See, you have mobile phones, but even though you have mobile phones, you need a particular software for communication. So that is software. So softwares, but later we can define the term software in a different way. In terms of technical perspective, we can define it. But for the moment, software is a kind of component used for performing tasks. But definitely we can take a well modified answer later in relation with technical. But here I briefly defined. So now imagine, to do any task, you need these two. You may take any other examples, right? Assume that you want to play a game. So having computer, keyboard, mouse important, monitor important. At the same time, you need the game. That is software, right? Say you want to type a letter. If you want to type a letter in the computer, you need all the necessary hardware. You need monitor, you need keyboard, mouse, everything. At the same time, you need a program inside. You need a software inside for which enable you to type, like MS Word. You might have heard, right, in the previous classes, MS Word, or you have some softwares. So that is software. Okay, so these two are important. But in addition to these, you need some other components too. Look here, liveware. What is liveware? Anybody? What is liveware?
Used to start the computer.
Sorry, I couldn't hear. Speak loudly, please.
Used to start
what is live?
the computer. Used to start the computer.
Start the computer. Any others? Maybe, as I always say, the terms have the meaning. Try taking some meanings from the term. Any other answers?
Once who used the computer.
Repeat it.
Once who used the computer.
Yes, the person who uses the computer. Right, it's a human being. Liveware means the person who uses the computer, simply a user. Now see, I am the liveware. You are the liveware. So imagine if we are not here, computer never perform tasks. They don't have such intelligence. So we are here in order to coordinate the things, in order to input the things. So that is liveware. So you might have learned different livewares in the previous classes, but we will learn them in grade 11. Actually, liveware takes different names according to his or her role. For example, see, you might have heard programmers. So program actually is a person, is a user whose role is to write programs for the computer. Of course, he's a liveware. So you might have heard web designer or web developer. That is also a liveware, but his role is different than programmers. So he is the responsible person for designing web pages. That is another one. Have you understood? So there may be so many liveware. Even as an individual, as an ordinary user, you can be liveware. You are using the computer, so you can liveware. So without liveware, computers would not work, or computers would not perform tasks, because liveware should be there in order to coordinate, in order to input. So that is important, right? So now, in addition to these three, you need firmware too. So firmware is a small program, or is a piece of program which is needed for booting the computer. That is only for booting purpose. But technically, the term booting has a meaning. I will explain that one in unit number 5. We don't want to take such big meaning for booting, but you might have heard this word. What does booting mean? Booting the computer. What is it?
Starting.
Yes, simply starting the computer. Start computer. You know, when press the power button, computer start functioning. That initial activity can be called booting, but definitely it has a meaning in terms of technology. We will discuss because it takes time. That is not suitable now. In unit number 5, we will discuss about operating system. There I will explain. Okay, for the moment, booting is starting. So what is firmware? Because you know, it's a computer is a machine. It has so many devices attached. So you have mouse, keyboard, monitor. So inside of the computer, there are many. So when you press the power button, you know, so many devices should work together, should start working together. So your computer is a machine, right? It doesn't know how to start or how to initiate the proceedings. So it doesn't know. Okay, so there should be a small program inside of the computer in order to, help it to start. So with the help of the firmware, your computer starts working. That is firmware. It is only for booting purpose, starting purpose. Okay, so now you can understand, right? You can think about this. Without these 4, performing a task is impossible, because without firmware, computer would not boot, would not start. So firmware must. So once computer is booted, to do any task, you need software. It may be any task, designing photo, editing videos, playing game, any task, you need a software. At the same time, in order to perform any task, you need some hardwares, because we have to give the data or instruction through the hardware. So hardware important. At the same time, you must be there, right? You must be there in the name of, or in the form of liveware. So if all these things are there, then it is possible to perform tasks. Okay, so understand how these components contribute to the computer, or how these can be, or how this can be important for the computer, right? Try to understand. I briefly explain everything, but definitely we will discuss about hardware in detail, software in detail, but maybe these two, there is actually nothing to explain in detail, but we will take some things about these two, right? Not now. Okay, so these are the 4 components of a computer system. Right. Hereafter, we have to discuss about the first component, which is written just now, hardware, computer hardware. Okay, maybe from today to maybe after some, maybe the next three or 4 classes, we will have to take this heading, right? Hardware. At least 5 or 6 classes needed to complete this one, because you know, hardware, the term hardware includes so many things. So we need to understand everything in detail. So definitely it takes time, right? Maybe in the unit number 2, the majority of the facts belong to hardware. Maybe I can simply say 90% of the unit belongs to hardware. Maybe 10% belongs to some other things. So understand the importance. Okay. I have already defined the term hardware. Even without any definition or without any introduction, as a student, you could understand, because this is too common, right? Everyone uses. So hardware is physical component. Simply, it's a tangible product, which means you can touch it. Okay, but in a computer system, we have different hardwares. So I take three hardwares. Listen to me. I take three hardware and look into the functions. I look inside and take the functions. So take the mouse. Okay, take the keyboard, monitor, and let me take another one, pen drive or something, pen drive. Okay, I have taken three well-known hardware components. I'm sure that everyone knows, right? Everyone has the experience. Keyboard, right? Monitor, pen drive. So as we know, keyboard is used for sending the data to the computer. We can send the numbers, we can send the symbols, we can send letters to the computer. So even we can say that these data are given to the computer as input. So this keyboard, the role of the keyboard is to input something to the computer. It never gives anything back to us. It helps us to input, right? Okay, that is keyboard. But have a look at the monitor's role. So monitor is something different than keyboard. You cannot input anything through the monitor. So monitor, what's the role of the monitor? Monitor shows something to the user. So when some activities happen inside of the computer, there is a result found, there is an output found. That output is sent from the monitor. So monitor's role is to give something back to us, which means it's output, right? This is input. And look at the pen drive. It never inputs anything. It never gives anything back to us. The pen drive's role, the role of the pen drive is to store something inside. You may think that it can input something, so it seems that it inputs something, but actually it never inputs, it saves something inside. So keyboard helps us to input the letters, numbers to the computer. Monitor helps us to bring the letters, pictures, and everything back to us. That is output. And pen drive on the other side, it has the ability to store. So now you can easily understand that every device which I mentioned on the board has different functions. So what is the function of a keyboard? It's input. What's the function of a monitor? It is bringing the output. What about pen drive's role? It is storing. But they all hardware. Keyboard is a hardware, monitor is a hardware, and pen drive is a hardware. But they have different functions. So come to the point. Based on the functions, hardwares are divided into 5 types. Right? Hardware is divided, is classified into 5 based on the functions. Even now also I mentioned 3 functions. Have a look at them: input function, output function, and also a storage or saving function. But there should be 5. So let's take the types of hardware first. Right, the first one is called input devices. Right, so you could have learned such things in previous grades, right? Input devices, I will explain. Second, output devices. Output devices. Third, storage devices. Storage devices. Fourth, processing device. I use the word in singular, processing device. Yes, we have 5 types. The last one, communication devices, right? Communication devices. All these are hardwares, but they have different functions, right? See, before we take one by one, you can get some idea from the word. That may be the reason, that may be the simple way, simple, I mean, that may be one of the advantages that you get when studying in English, right? So the words itself have meaning. Look at them, input devices. No need for any introduction. So you know these are hardwares. So once you realize that they are hardwares, then you can guess what it performs with the help of the name, right? So I will explain about input devices in detail later, but for the moment, these devices help us to input the data to the computer. Later we will study. Output devices, as I told you earlier, these devices bring the output or bring the information from computer to the user. It is totally opposite to the input device. You know, the data must be saved in your computer. We all save our things for a later purpose. Even before process taken place, some of the data must be saved. We will discuss, right? So storage devices are for storing the data as well as information. See, there is a device called processing device. Right? We have learned about computer. We have defined the term computer today. In that particular definition, I mentioned that computer is a machine which converts the data to information. Okay, converting the data into information. So your computer needs data because it has to convert the data into information. So it must take the data. You know, for taking the data, input devices are used. After processing the data, it gives the information, right? That is output. So these outputs are given to the users with the help of output devices. So in between data and output or data and information, you know, process is taking place. Computer is an electronic machine which converts the data into information. So input devices are used for input the data. Output devices are used to get the output, which means information. So who can convert the data into information? Who can process the data into information? That is the role of processing device. Okay, so processing device converts the data into information. Even you can say it processes the data into information. But we will study everything in detail in this unit. I'm giving an introduction for each and every category. The last one, communication devices. You know, nowadays we are able to communicate with people who are in different parts of the world. Even now, think about here, you are in one place, I'm here, we are physically dispatched. Even though we are physically separated, we are able to communicate. I can listen to you and you can see me and you can hear me. So how? Maybe software important, maybe hardware important, but in addition to this, you need some communication devices, some devices needed for communication. Like, so you might have heard some name, we will discuss router, right? Have you heard such words? Router is there, and you might have heard dongle, right? You might have heard network switch. Sometimes the term switch is different because we don't use the name or we don't use that device every day, but definitely you might have heard router. So these are communication devices. Look, that's a physical device, so that must be connected with the computer. But you cannot bring that as input or output. That is not the one, because it helps us for communication. So all these things are hardwares. Hereafter, we have to take every hardware, every type of the hardware and take some examples. We have to understand the term input device, and then we must take some of the examples. That's enough. Not only for input device, we have to do this for all these 5 types. Okay, let's come back again. So what are hardware's physical components of a computer is hardware. Since hardware, every hardware has different functions, they can be classified into 5. So this classification is based on the functions, various functions. We have input devices, we have output devices, storage devices, processing device, and communication devices. Okay, right. So let's take the input device now. Right, this is the one which I talked about. A computer system is divided into 4. They are the components: hardware, software, liveware, firmware. You don't need to worry about this part, right? We will discuss later the types of software. That is not important now. Right, look at the hardware section. So hardware is divided into 5: input devices, output devices, processing device, storage devices, and communication devices. Okay, right. So let's understand the input device. Here I have defined the term hardware. Physical components of computers are called computer hardwares. These are tangible products, which means you can touch that. It has a physical appearance, right? Hardware are categorized as input devices, output devices, processing device, storage devices, and communication devices. Okay, so it is based on function. So let's take the input device first. Look, the term tells the story, right? Input devices. So that's enough, more than enough. So what are input devices? The devices used to input the data as well as instruction to the computer. So when you want to define the term, you must define it correctly. Yes, the term input device may give some idea to you. That is too simple. But when it comes to examination, you have to carefully give the definition. So how did I define that one? These are hardwares which are used for input data as well as instruction. So input devices usually input both data and instruction. I tell you one example. Look here. So assume that you are typing something in your computer. Okay, you are typing something. So which means you are using the keyboard. So now imagine the keyboard helps us to send the data to the computer because we are pressing the letters, numbers, symbols. What are they? They are data. So in this particular instance, keyboard helps us for input the data. In my definition, I use both data and instruction, right? Okay. Now we know mouse also input device. But look, when you are handling mouse, when you are using mouse, you can easily understand that it is not for inputting the data. What can you do with mouse? You click the objects, you click the buttons, you click whatever you want. So assume that, see, you are playing a game. So when you click a button or something with the help of mouse, you know, something happens, some reaction happens. So how that particular mouse gives some instruction to the computer. Even look here, now you can see I'm using the mouse, right? So now look here, I'm pointing this close button, right? You can see that, right? I'm pointing the close button. So if I click the mouse button, definitely this document is closed. So what happened now? See, this mouse is not giving in any data now. It is a kind of instruction. So when I click, you know, that window is closed. So how it's closed? It receives some instruction from mouse. So when you define the term input device, you must carefully define it, because most of the students often say that the input devices are used for input the data. Yes, they are for input the data. At the same time, they can input instructions as well. Okay, so what are input devices? The devices which input both data and instructions to the computer are input devices. Take a look at my definition. The devices which are used to input the data and instructions to the computers are called input devices. Okay, so give importance for both phrases, right? Data as well as instructions. Okay, right. So now we know what the term input device is. In addition to that, we should know some of the examples, some of the input devices. There are hundreds of input devices are available. The reason is simple, because you have so many data in so many different formats. We discussed about data in unit number 1. You know, not all the data exist in the same format. Some of the data exist in the form of numbers. Some of them exist in the form of text. Some of the data available in audio format, sound format. Some of them may be in image format. Some of them may be in video format. Now imagine all these things are data. Video is a data, audio is a data, image is a data, number is a data, text is a data. Now imagine how can input all these different types of data through a single input device. That is too tough. Because look at the behaviors of the data. One is number, the other one is text. Maybe number, text almost same, but see, one is image, the other one is video, other one is audio. So it is extremely difficult to input all these different types of data through a single input device. So that's why we have hundreds of input devices. Time to time, they introduce so many new input devices in order to assist the people. So now you have so many new devices which we didn't see in the past, but we managed to do the same task with some other devices. But now technology improved, so scientists, thought about some issues and they invented some new input devices. Okay, right. So there are so many input devices. We will have to take those examples one by one. Right. So it would be better if I take those examples later, tomorrow. So today we started the unit number 2. I take the simple summary, right? Unit number 2. This is all about studying the basics of computer, fundamentals of computer. So we started with the term computer. We define it. Then we took the characteristics of a computer. After that, we took the components of a computer, which means the components which are needed in order to any task in a computer. Okay, so a computer has 4 components. We took it. The first important component is hardware. So we defined the term hardware, and after that we further classified the hardware into 5. Right. So now we started to discuss the first type of input hardware, which is input devices. Okay. So I defined the term input devices, but not give example, right? I didn't give any examples. So you can take some examples and understand the things. Okay. So enough for today. We will meet in tomorrow's class. Thank you.